nation needs you to take action now. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have pledged to make taking away your Second Amendment rights a top priority through gun bans, gun confiscation, government regulations, and even a gun tax. They have aligned themselves with anti-gun activists like billionaire Michael Bloomberg and appoint radicals like Beto O'Rourke as the anti-gun czar. The fight begins now with your text of Protect 2A to 474747. Text Protect 2A to 474747 to pledge your support and become a Second Amendment first responder. Your right to own a gun and protect your family are on the line. Text Protect 2A to 474747 and join the fight to protect your Second Amendment rights. Text Protect 2A to 474747 to pledge your support and become a Second Amendment first responder.
Underneath the star-filled skies tonight, you discover my disguise. It ain't right, no it ain't right. I've been lying to myself, you can see. Only honesty sets men free. Yeah.
Shooter standby.
You hit the radio bullseye. And the home for everything Second Amendment. Concealed carry, the latest gear, reciprocity, legislation, the right to self-protection. And it shall not be infringed. This is Eye on the Target Radio with your hosts, Rob and Amanda.
Well, hey folks, welcome to the show. It has been a glorious week, and nothing horrific has happened in the Second Amendment world that I know, think about, remember.
Everything's pretty much on hold right now. I mean,
okay, we'll take that.
Texas has a couple things going on, but they're all trying to make a decision as to who's going to be in charge of it.
Well, and yeah, there's some of that, and it's like where, what's actually moving and what's moving and holding and what's holding and then moving. And
I've seen Remington, the gun manufacturing part of it in New York, is back into production again. So
and who owns them? Who got custody of Remington?
I have no idea, but I believe that they're making 870s as their first.
I did see that.
First thing coming out. So I can tell you that I have a V3 autoloading shotgun from the last undulation of Remington. I really like that. I hope they hurry up and bring that back out.
Okay. So they absolutely may. And it's going to be interesting as each of the companies picks up and owns their section of this disbanded company, what that's going to mean.
They're moving it to new locations. They're doing different things with it. And so it's going to, we're going to see, they're saying sometime July we should see some of the new Marlins coming out of Ruger. The ammunition end of it says that they're shipping every day, so.
I think I'm seeing a breakup of ammunition, the log jam, where you couldn't get any. Now you can get it. You may not be able to afford it, but you can get it. So before you couldn't afford it and you couldn't get it. Now you just can't afford it. So maybe it'll work its way to where you can almost afford it.
Right, and depending on, hopefully they'll have the kind that your gun takes, so you'll have to buy a new gun.
Buy a new gun. Well, except that they sold so many guns that there weren't any guns either.
Right.
So, yeah, so it was like it was at one point, what gun do you got? Okay, I'll take the ammo for that. Then it was, what ammo you got? Okay, I'll take the gun for that. And now it's like, if you've got ammo, I'll take it. If you've got a gun, I'll take it. And I'll match them up later at home.
I was at the gun shop the other day, and they don't have anything new and cool and exciting, so I bought a rolling block in 40-65 Winchester.
Okay, that's not new, nor cool, nor exciting.
It was real easy to make bullets for, so that's what was good about it. Is I pretty much just take 45-70 cases and run them through the sizer, trim it to length, and you're ready to start loading.
There you go. It's
even I can follow those directions.
Even you. Oh man, it's more even because I'm not the reloader. I'm all afraid of getting all blowed up.
I know, so like that with black powder, you just fill it, scoop it till it's full, and then shove a bullet in. Can't get it wrong.
Can't get it wrong. Sure, you can't get it wrong. So I know that last week you took your gun to have new sights put on it, and I took my gun to have new sights put on it. And have you shot yours since the new sights are out?
Yeah, I shot a couple hundred rounds through the other day, and it was same as it was when the sights were in the right spot the first time.
Well, that's good. Mine, they said let it dry, so don't shoot it yet, and so then I just put it down, and I haven't picked it back up yet because I was a little busy doing a speed round to New Jersey and back. So
yeah, we put the new XS big dot sights on the thing, and at close range, you just put the big dot on something, pull the trigger, you can't miss. It's a piece of cake. A little more fine tuning. There's a smaller little nodule of whatever
a different color,
the night light part of it that glows in the dark. So you can go to that if you want to do like a fine bead type work, if you're trying to show off and like put out a candle or light a cigarette or something like that.
Oh yeah. So I have to take mine to the range before I go to Atlanta and embarrass myself in front of Brian Hill with a new gun that the sights may or may not be exactly where I need them to be. So that's going to be part of my this week before I head off. So.
Oh, it's really rough. You got to go to the range.
Got to. I have to. I have to.
I think the weather's supposed to be good all week too, so that's a plus.
I'm telling you, and I have ammo. So I have ammo. I'm going to the range. That's all going to be good. And yeah. So this will be a trip back to the range with my SIG P365 because that is my carry gun, and so that's the gun I want to put bullets through. So when I go take training, I take training with my carry gun. And there's a lot of people who are like, well, there's other guns that are easier to shoot if you're doing a lot of long-term work and stuff. And it's like, well, I like to work to get good at all of my guns. But if I have to work to get really good at one gun, there's one gun I'd like to be really good at. And that's the gun that's going to save my life.
Yeah, I got multiple guns. I have the 365. I have had the what's that other one? The Hellcat.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like it. Kicked too hard. It was funny.
Did you
Identical size gun. When you put it side by side, they looked almost identical.
I'm looking.
And it wasn't like one's taller or one's got a different angle on the grip or anything. Nothing. But there's a noticeable difference in the amount of recoil, and my friends noticed it too without me saying anything about it. But the other thing that was funny is I have a full size FN, an FNS that I shoot. And the other day I was playing with both of them side by side, and I noticed that my FNS weighs about half of what my P365 weighs.
I know you handed both of those to me, and you're like, "Here, hold this."
The FN is so much lighter than the little compact SIG is.
How? And since they both have a steel slide.
Right, everything, and this 365 is much smaller slide.
I don't get
So
it.
it just seems funny that it was that much more heavy.
So is there something cut out? Where's the density? How is that? Is there something going on with the time-space continuum?
Both of them, I've shot a lot of bullets. There were a couple boxes. It was a couple of 100 boxes of bullets through both of them. I haven't had any kind of issues at all with either one, except for my sights falling off of my SIG multiple times.
Right.
But they're not particular about ammo. They both shoot great, and so I like both of them. I had originally, for a long time, I shot a full-size Walter, the P99. It was the first generation and had a decocker on the top. And it was kind of that extra step of hitting that decocker was too much effort, I guess you will. How's that for lazy? I didn't want to put the safety on anymore. I just want to put it in my pocket.
Okay.
But that FNS fits in the Glock 17 holsters, and as soon as you let go of the trigger, it's done shooting, you put it in your pocket. There's no more safeties, no flip switches, no nothing. It's a...
Well, you were mentioning the SIG 365, and you were mentioning the Hellcat in the same sentence. That's a problem. And the reason it's a problem is SIG says that Hellcat is way too close to the 365 and the patents associated with the 365.
Well, I'll say it'll sort itself out. If you're like me and you buy both of them, you'll decide you like one more than the other, and I can bet you which one you like it.
Most people don't buy two. They buy one, and it's the one you got, so you're gonna like it.
Then you're just out of luck, because if you don't know both halves of the story, then but you'll be much happier with the 365 than you will with the Hellcat.
Well, there is that, but
that's my unsolicited opinion. It cost me about $650 to tell you.
Well, not really, because you sold the Hellcat,
right?
And I'm sure you didn't lose money because you probably made money because now it was owned by Rob Dude. It's famous. Did you sign it? Did you autograph it before you sold it?
But I bought it really early when it first came out, and I
sold it really early.
I sold it while it was still, you couldn't hardly find one. So I got most of my money back without too much issue.
There you go. So did you read the story about the patent?
No, I didn't. It was a non-story to me. I
think it is a story. So they're saying that the Hellcat infringes upon the patent design of the 365 magazine. And to me, that's like one of those, when you take apart a magazine, they all pretty much look the same inside.
What's got a different fold to it, or this or that. That's the thing about the 365. They come with 10s, 12s, and you can buy 15 round mags for it. And that's I mean, even my full-size guns only hold like 17, so that's not really that much less ammo than the full-size guns.
Right.
And the magazines, it's kind of funny because a magazine costs in the $50 range for almost anything anymore.
I know.
Some more. Years ago, I had a HK VP70, those space-looking guns.
Right.
And this had to be 10, 12 years ago, and the magazine was about $75 for that.
You're like, ooh. Yesterday I was in a conversation with somebody. We were talking about HK, and they were talking about the fact that they have the, I think it's the P7, C7, P7.
P7.
The HK P7. And I was like, hey, that's this. I know that gun. I was in the Matthew McConaughey movie trying to sell that gun in the movie. That's how I know that gun. I thought that was funny. Okay, we'll be back. Right
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Riding Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
Had a dirty day? Grunt Goat Tactical Soaps, made from fresh goat's milk and organic oils that detoxify, clean, and restore moisture to skin, will get you ready for your next adventure. These unique soaps are handcrafted in the Blue Ridge Mountains and shipped to anywhere in the U.S. Visit SillyBillyGoatFarm.com for their full line of Grunt Goat Tactical Soaps. That's SillyBillyGoatFarm.com.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl / mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
So we are back with our history section, and so I've made some notes of things that I want to know about. And in this day and age of shortages of ammo, and we're creatures of habit, so I always buy this kind of ammo. I always buy this weight of a bullet. I always buy. Hey, Mark Hookham, he says he's going to see us at Mag 40. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but I'd like to see you guys at Mag 40 too. South Dakota. We will mention that. But, so ammo-wise, if you always shoot the same thing, you always shoot the same bullet weight, you always shoot the same whatever, and now in this day and age where you shoot whatever you can get and you'll like it.
Right, but there's some things that come in different power ranges, like shotgun shells, 22 ammo.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, there was different... Well, you still get like plus P and stuff like that. So back in the day, they didn't classify it as plus P or plus P plus. There was some like 3220 ammo that they made back in the 30s that was hotter than the standard stuff. So it was only recommended for like the Winchester 92 action and stuff, and not any of the weaker things. So usually it said right on the box that you're going to blow yourself up.
You're going to get all blowed up. I don't think they said that. They don't actually say you're going to get all blowed up.
In the like on a 22, you'll see. I mean, I've had some people that bought a box and it says like 22 quiet or something, and then they find then they say, well, my gun doesn't work. It's single shot basically. You have to load it every time by. I mean, that bullet's built to be quiet so that it doesn't have a lot of powder in it, and so it makes your semi-automatic gun not want to load it. So there's other standard velocity ones, and then high velocity, and then they have hyper velocity, and so there's some of like the stingers and the velocitors and stuff like this that are much more power than you'd want to put through an old. If you got a gun from the 20s or something, they can't take that kind of a beating.
Oh my gosh! I remember we had that one class, and a gal comes in and she brings her dad's pistols. And they are, well, from the 19...
She had, one was a Colt, it was a Match Woodsman with the elephant ear grips, so they're kind of rare. The grips usually got damaged somewhere along the line. The grips are, if you look it up online, you'll see what it say.
It's really weird.
They have these big, long flaps that hang down past the side of the pistol, and they call them elephant ears. Until 1931, the guns weren't built for high-speed ammo. You had to buy an extra kit after that point and add the spring assembly and stuff to them. Otherwise, the high-speed ammo will beat the gun to pieces. And so
she's got guns that were built before that were in pristine condition that she brought, and she's like, okay, I'm just going to shoot this. And Rob's like, no, don't do it. One, don't shoot that gun with those grips, because if you break them, you will never. You don't
get the grips. I mean, the grips cost more than the pistol is worth, and so that it definitely has a collective value over top of what its shooting value is, and then two is like if you shoot the wrong ammo in it shortens the lifespan of the gun, or it makes it so you're so mad because every shot I have to open the action manually and make the. So be aware of that there's different styles of ammo and different power factors of some different things. Shotgun shells, you'll go in, there used to be low brass and high brass. Mainly it'll tell you like a dram equivalent on there, and that's more of a signal of how much power it has, and the more it's got, if it says max or it says like 3 3/4, that's going to kick a lot harder than when it's a 2.5 dram load and stuff. So the dram is how much black powder they used to put in the gun. 1 gram is 28 grains of gunpowder. So,
Okay, and since most people don't know how you measure a grain,
right,
because it's not really a
it's not a kernel. It's by weight, and there's 7,000 grains in a pound. So it's just a more modern, confusing way of weighing it than
it's not metric, it's not English, it's just another mutant way of measuring. But know that it is not. Yeah.
Right. It's not each individual kernel, and that's a good question. When a lot of people are starting reloading, they're like, "How do you count those out so that you get
right?" It doesn't quite work that way.
82 of those,
right. And then you weigh it. It doesn't work that way.
It works loose on you use it on a scale, and there is some different powder measures in that they have like little scoops and that they've calculated about how much each one will hold. So it gives you a good rough estimate, and it always tries to err on the lower side.
Right. Yeah. So, so our listeners are like, how many drams in a fifth? It's one of those where I don't think that it's like stones and a lady's weight. They don't. They do not cross.
Some of it I think is a liquid measure versus a solid measure or something. So
well, that's why in measuring there's a liquid measuring cup and a dry measuring cup, so they're really almost not the same. It's even though.
And then you wonder why you don't want to reload, because you might get blown up.
I know. I am smart enough to know that I am going to be scared and I am going to mess this up.
You know, and to make it even worse, like some of the gunpowder companies, they use the same number. So like IMR, which is Improved Military Rifle, which was a DuPont company, had, say, 4350, and then the Hodgson company would come out with H4350,
and they weren't the same.
They weren't the same, so they were close, but they weren't exactly the same.
See,
so they duplicated these numbers, but yet they didn't duplicate the same load.
Don't do it. And it's like
some of the old books took it for granted that you knew they were talking about the IMR, and so they didn't.
They didn't put IMR in front of it.
Right. Hodgson was such a small company, it didn't count at that point. So the IMR was the king, and so.
Yeah, you're gonna get blown up. That would be just my nickname. My new nickname is Stubby. You know, I don't want. I have all my fingers and my toes.
Some of us, they tell you too, you should download by about 10% and start there and see how your gun likes it.
But what happens when you're not a waiting kid?
Right. But that's the thing. So, and if you've got to load 5 bullets and then wait to get to the range to see how it works.
And the range is an hour away.
Then you come back and then you got to load more and then go back and try it again, or you load 8 or 10 and put them in baggies and then try
label them and then I don't remember. Wait, I put a little hash mark and then I put a dash mark and then I didn't write what I thought because I'll remember. I will remember.
Keep good notes because that's going to save you a lot of redoing it over.
Yeah, so always refer to your loading data because this is a recipe. You need to follow the recipe.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
Had a dirty day? Grunt Goat Tactical Soaps, made from fresh goat's milk and organic oils that detoxify, clean, and restore moisture to skin, will get you ready for your next adventure. These unique soaps are handcrafted in the Blue Ridge Mountains and shipped to anywhere in the U.S. Visit SillyBillyGoatFarm.com for their full line of Grunt Goat Tactical Soaps. That's SillyBillyGoatFarm.com. Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Suffolcool and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Riding Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
Hi, this is Paul Lathrop from the Polite Society podcast. I wanted to let you know that the show you're listening to is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. You can check out all the shows on the network by going to selfdefenseradio.net or tune in for more on Self-Defense Mondays on Karma Radio, KRMAradio.com.
This is Dan Perkins with your Songs and Stories for Soldiers, Veterans Tip of the Day. If you're a veteran with a disability, are you interested in a program that could give you a free home? Homes for Our Troops is a privately funded 501c3 nonprofit organization that builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post-9/11 veterans to enable them to rebuild their lives. These homes restore some of the freedom and independence our veterans sacrificed while defending our country and enable them to focus on their family and recovery. Since its inception in 2004, nearly 90 cents of every dollar has gone directly to the program to serve veterans. HFOT builds these homes where the veterans choose to live and continues its relationship with the veterans after the home delivery to assist them in rebuilding their lives. For more information, go to their website, www.hfotusa.org, and see if you can qualify for the home of your dreams. This has been your Songs and Stories for Soldiers, Veterans Tip of the Day.
Okay, we are back, folks, and this is a section where we have a guest, and I have to say that I ran into this gal at an event, and so we started talking, and I invited her to come on because you talk about deep thoughts of the day. This is going to cause you to think deeper. So our guest today is Sharon Kennedy, and she's an Ohio Supreme Court Justice. Get that. An Ohio Supreme Court Justice. So one of the highest courts in the country. You know how it graduates up. There is a state Supreme Court, and then there is the Supreme Court of the United States. So she's a big deal. So we're gonna start with that. And she's got some serious deep thoughts. And the topic today is talking about our Second Amendment, and then states' rights and our Second Amendment as it applies to the state. And so, hey, Sharon Kennedy, thanks for joining us on Eye on the Target Radio.
Well, good afternoon, and thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, it's great. It is absolutely wonderful. So I was sharing with Rob here in the studio some of the thoughts that you had sent me, and I'm like, I'm going to need to read this and then read this and then read this again, because my engineering degree does not necessarily cause me to be able to think as deep as this is, but it's really pretty darn interesting.
Well, I'm not really sure that is as deep as you're giving me credit for, but I do think it's an interesting topic, because I think what we fail to appreciate as Americans is that there are really 51 constitutions operating in the United States every single day. You have your U.S. federal constitution, but then each of the states has their own state constitution. So the question that I pose is, what is it that state constitutions can provide protection for?
Mm-hmm. So that was that. I mean, it really is. It's a deep thought. So start to talk to me about what you call dual sovereignty.
Well, I think the concept of dual sovereignty, I really give credit to the Federalist Society. The Federalist Society is a movement where states should actually look at the protections that are afforded their citizens. And in that idea of dual sovereignty is the notion that the United States Constitution sets the floor by which no state constitution may fall below. So in other words, the United States Constitution, the Bill of Rights, through Article 14, says to all the states that these constitutional protections ascribe to all the states. So that's the floor to which no state can fall below. But we recognize that the principle that a state constitution may actually set a ceiling of greater protection for its citizens against the overreach of government. And once you kind of embrace that notion that there are dual protections, at least here in Ohio, for the right to bear arms, and that our version of the right to bear arms might actually afford greater protection, I think you start thinking about constitutional rights in a different way. But it doesn't just apply to the right to bear arms. It applies to property rights and other sorts of protected rights that are constitutionally protected against the overreach of government. So you have your own document of sovereignty that you should always examine and look at. And we begin this conversation because so many cases fail to appreciate that there is a right, a protected right in the Ohio Constitution. So to me, lawyers are leaving protected rights on the table when they should be arguing them in court.
Okay, so that to me was a statement that is like the lawyers leave arguments underdeveloped, unexplored, unquestioned. And is it because they don't know any better? Is it because they're not deep thinkers? Is it because they're lazy? Is it because I got a bad lawyer? I mean, why would they not use every tool that is afforded to them?
I think when we talk in terms of constitutional rights, most people think of the United States Constitution and they stop. They don't ponder what is it that your state constitution affords. I think for many, they aren't exploring that aspect because so much of our time is spent talking about only the federal Constitution. For instance, your show's about the Second Amendment. How often have you ever discussed state constitutional rights as it relates to the right to bear arms? If you actually look at the Ohio State Constitution, there are really two places in our Constitution that talk about the right to defend life and liberty. And there's also a separate about the right to bear arms. So if you looked at the Ohio Constitution, Article 1, Section 1, all men are by nature free and independent and have certain inalienable rights, among which are those of enjoying and defending life and liberty, acquiring, possessing, and protecting property, and seeking and obtaining happiness, and safety. I mean, that is a statement of your Bill of Rights, of what your rights are as a person as given from God. And these are your protected rights against the overreach of government. But when you get to Section 4 of Article 1, it says the people have the right to bear arms for their defense and security. And then there are semicolons, so it is punctuated with different thoughts. But standing armies in the time of peace are dangerous to liberty and shall not be kept up, semicolon. And the military shall be in strict subordination to the civil power, period. But it's that first clause that the Ohio Supreme Court in the past has examined parts of it to actually find that, remembering that in 1993, when it was first discussed in a case called the Arnold versus the City of Cleveland, that they found that that right was more protective than the Second Amendment. And I put it in the context of a temporal statement as to the time it was decided, because Heller would be decided much later in time as to what the Second Amendment really stood for. Did it really only apply to militia? So as you read cases in Ohio or other states, you see how that gets developed. I can't say that it's bad lawyering or lack of knowledge. I can tell you that I was on a panel with the Federalist Society at the Ohio chapter last Friday, and one of the things we talked about in our panel was how do we get lawyers to recognize the importance of their state constitution and start looking at those arguments to make as it relates to what the General Assembly is doing, as it relates to statutory enactments, or what law enforcement is doing when they're making those stops, seizing your property and making an arrest. That there is another functional equivalent that could be more protective of your rights. So that dual sovereignty question should always be in the forefront.
I think it's pretty amazing. I want to go back to Article 1, Section 1 of the Ohio Constitution, though, because for us, as we have been, I mean, firearms people, firearms trainers, and the Ohio Concealed Carry and those statements, we have been told that you cannot use a gun to defend property. And so in this, I'm going to read this back. All men are by nature free and independent and have certain inalienable rights, among which are those of enjoying and defending life and liberty. That makes sense. Acquiring and possessing, and here's the word, protecting property. Yet in Ohio and in a lot of states, you are not allowed to protect property. So is that, and there's, I know that there's this fine line between us exploring things that are cases that could be cases that versus case law that has happened before. But do you think that that is a potential argument for someone if they have or should they use their firearm to protect property?
I'm going to say that anyone can make an argument. Do I think that that's a winning argument? No. Section 1 of Article 1 is really a statement, a global statement of your rights. But when you look at our version of the right to bear arms, that is Section 4. Remember that first phrase that you read there is all men are by nature free and independent and have certain inalienable rights, among which are those of enjoying and defending life and liberty. Enjoying and defending life and liberty does not extend to protecting property. There's a comma there. And then it goes to comma and protecting property. You can protect property rights by...
Yeah, I'm going to have to hold you right there. Hold that thought, because we've got a commercial break. We're going to come back because I am riveted. Judge Sharon Kennedy.
Honest citizens like you protect themselves every day. We talk about it every week on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Were these gun owners lucky, or did they have a plan? How should we defend the people we love? We discuss recent examples on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Put us in your pocket.
Hi, I'm Janelle Westrom, owner of Davenport Guns and Davenport Shooting Club. At Davenport Guns, we do so much more than sell firearms. We advocate for increased personal safety and security, not just for you, but your whole family and community. Go to davenportguns.com to see our online inventory and browse videos, articles, and things we just find entertaining. Sign up for our newsletter to learn more.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Suffolk and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Riding Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
Had a dirty day? Grunt Goat Tactical Soaps, made from fresh goat's milk and organic oils that detoxify, clean, and restore moisture to skin, will get you ready for your next adventure. These unique soaps are handcrafted in the Blue Ridge Mountains and shipped to anywhere in the U.S. Visit SillyBillyGoatFarm.com for their full line of Grunt Goat Tactical Soaps. That's SillyBillyGoatFarm.com.
Okay, folks, we are back with Ohio Supreme Court Justice Sharon Kennedy, and we're talking about the Second Amendment of the United States, and we're talking about the impact of that and what is written in the Ohio Constitution. And I know we're nationwide, and I know that there are people saying, what about my state? I don't have a Supreme Court justice for every state, so you're going to have to listen to Ohio, and then you're going to have to extrapolate it to your state, and then start looking stuff up and thinking. But this is deep thoughts on states' rights versus federal rights and where they go. But I want to kind of toss back to, we were talking about the Ohio Constitution, Article 1, Section 1, and when we got so rudely cut off by a commercial break, you were at the point, Justice Kennedy, of telling us that a comma makes a difference. So when it's defending life and liberty, comma, so what comes before a comma has different meaning than what comes after a comma? Is this where I should have paid attention in English class?
Well, we should have all paid great attention in English class. And yes, the words make a difference, and so do the grammar. But this is a general clause of your rights and your liberty. The more specific clause as it relates to the right to bear arms is Section 4. So if you want to know specifically what the Ohio Constitution says as it relates to the right to bear arms, the people have the right to bear arms for their defense and security, semicolon. It seems very clear to me that in breaking that up and actually having a separate section discussing only the right to bear arms, that this is the focus of the Constitution, where Article 1, Section 1 is that more broad statement of a Bill of Rights, and having and enjoying inalienable rights, among which are those of enjoying and defending life and liberty. But the grammar question that you ask goes to who you are as a judicial thinker as well. One of the other things we talked about at the Federalist Society seminar is, who are you as a judicial thinker? And for me, when you start looking at constitutional provisions or statutory provisions, we look at the text, how that text of a statute fits within that scheme and what that grammar is. And yes, a comma makes a difference, because when you are looking at a constitutional provision and there isn't a comma in those old documents, it means something else. And cases have been decided based on a comma at the Supreme Court of Ohio. So when you are looking at those constitutional rights, I do think the grammar matters, and you would want it to matter to those of us who wear a robe. You want us to rely on the text, the history and tradition, and the established meaning at the time that document was written. You know, in 1802, we had a state constitution, and the words of our version of the Second Amendment was a little different. And in 1851, when the next constitutional convention happened in 1851, then the provision changed. But there have been many constitutional conventions since that time, and the amendment has had little discussion and no change whatsoever. So we would drive back to what was going on in 1851 when they made that change.
That's amazing to me. It really is amazing. As is, you know, this Arnold versus the City of Cleveland, and where we were looking at Second Amendment, Ohio Second Amendment issues, because one of the things that has always gotten me was that the SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States, did not make a determination on firearms on the Heller decision until 2008. And so it's like everybody's like, but my rights and my Second Amendment rights. And it had not gotten to a Supreme Court level until that time. So the timing of Arnold versus Heller, why don't you go a little bit into that? So does that mean that Heller changes the thought process of Arnold or not?
I don't think Heller changes Arnold at all. But what I will point to is when you look at Arnold versus the City of Cleveland, it was really focused on the Ohio Constitution. And that is the first time that the state Supreme Court said that the Ohio Constitution is more protective of the people's right to bear arms. Heller was decided 15 years later. I think an honest reading of Arnold is that the Arnold court believed that the Second Amendment was limited to the militia. After the Heller decision, you realize that the United States Supreme Court has determined that the Second Amendment is broader than just militia. It applies to your right to bear arms as an individual person. But when you look at old cases and read that, you see that use of the militia through lots of state Supreme Court decisions. And you see it in ours as well. So they're saying it was more protective because they saw a limitation of the militia. Whether or not that would be true today after the decision in Heller remains an open question, which I won't opine on, because that then becomes that next case. Regardless of that past case law, however, the point remains that when considering one's constitutional right to bear arms, both federal and state constitutions should be considered. Therefore, the parties in council must raise both. And it really goes back to what you said of a lack of making the argument or an underdevelopment of state constitutional arguments that we really spend a lot of time talking about in recent years. In fact, the Ohio Supreme Court, a number of justices have said in opinions, it's a shame you didn't raise a state constitutional provision, excuse me, because there could be other protections we're not really addressing. So as you see those comments in our opinions, that hope is that we're spurring lawyers and readers of our opinions to think about what's left behind. One of those cases was in 2020 was State versus Dibble, where we actually said that there was an invitation to lawyers to raise state constitutional arguments. And the view from the bench is that they're very rarely raised, and when raised, they're underdeveloped.
Okay, so if it gets to the Supreme Court, and in effect, as I'm hearing that is that you guys are slapping them down because they just didn't bring to you all of the things that you could have considered. Do they get a chance to modify that and come back, or do they have to start back up at the bottom and work their way through the courts?
We're a little bit more harsh than I would be. I don't think we're slapping them down. I think that we are writing thoughtful statements that would cause people to start thinking about protecting people's rights in a different way. That if you have a corollary constitutional provision, that they would start making that argument. For that case, the case is over. And yes, you have to start all over again as to what that means. So you have to begin it from the trial court. Remember, at the Supreme Court of Ohio, the last court of resort in Ohio, that case began at a trial court. It is tried at the trial court. Person wins or loses. They go to the intermediate appellate court, of which we have 12 in the state of Ohio. That person wins or loses there. And then they file what is called a discretionary appeal with us. So like the U.S. Supreme Court, we don't have to take every case that's appealed. That's also a distinction between us and the intermediate appellate court. You have an automatic right to that first appeal. But you have to convince 4 of us that the issue merits us taking it in. So it has to meet the commandment of the Ohio Constitution under Article 4.
I got to stop you. You are amazing, and I'm so glad that you joined us on Eye on the Target Radio. There is so much more to talk about. I'm reserving the right to call and get you back on here because I've got people sending me questions. They want to know so much more. Sharon Kennedy.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Your Second Amendment rights are under attack like no other time in history, and the Second Amendment Foundation needs you to take action now. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have pledged to make taking away your Second Amendment rights a top priority through gun bans, gun confiscation, government regulations, and even a gun tax. They have aligned themselves with anti-gun activists like billionaire Michael Bloomberg and appoint radicals like Beto O'Rourke as the anti-gun czar. The fight begins now with your text of Protect 2A to 474747. Text Protect 2A to 474747 to pledge your support and become a Second Amendment first responder. Your right to own a gun and protect your family are on the line. Text Protect 2A to 474747 and join the fight to protect your Second Amendment rights. Text Protect 2A to 474747 to pledge your support and become a Second Amendment first responder.
Underneath the star-filled skies tonight, you discover my disguise. It ain't right, no it ain't right. I've been lying to myself, you can see. Only honesty sets men free. Yeah, I choose.
seconds.
Shooter standby.
You hit the radio bullseye. And the home for everything Second Amendment, concealed carry, the latest gear, reciprocity, legislation, the right to self-protection, and it shall not be infringed. This is Eye on the Target Radio with your hosts, Rob and Amanda.
Okay, so we are back, and one of our listeners is asking us if there's any news on the manufacturing expansion capabilities of ammunition components like primers and powder in the USA. I think I heard, he says, GTR say 3 primer plants are being built. So isn't that, Gun Talk Radio is saying primer plants are being built. That, that's such a risk, and I haven't heard that, but that would be an interesting thing. Well, it's such a risk because do you build at the peak of the demand, and then when demand catches up, you're like, okay.
Well, with the way things are being, that all of a sudden there's none in the country, and then that maybe it's a worthwhile thing. And when we find someone say made in America, we need to buy those particular.
Yeah, we do, and so we'll explore that.
Even if you have to pay a little extra, it's worth having them here.
And I think the other thing is that they're probably guaranteed government contracts, because if there are components that are made in the United States that are for our defense efforts and war efforts and whatever that is, they get a priority in the purchase, and so they get a front row seat. So it's probably a very good tactical move, but I just hadn't heard it. It's very decidedly.
Funny how they don't check with us on many things.
No, they don't ask us. And then good luck on lead. So the thing on lead was the fact that we have, and it is us, we have allowed ourselves to be bullied in the name of green whatever, that the United States is going to stop producing all of the stuff for the good of the earth, yet we still buy it. So somewhere on the earth they're making it. Somewhere on the earth they have access to it. It's just not here. So is that really protecting the earth, or is that just not in my backyard?
We get it out of the earth anyhow, so
I know. It's a little bit of
there's no new lead smelting going on in the US, but there is used lead smelting going on in the US. But there again, now you need a Geiger counter for your bullets, because most of these lead are contaminated with old X-ray machines or something.
With some kind of radiation or something. I mean, there really isn't, in the steel manufacturing in the United States, there is nothing that does not have some form of radiation in it. So your gun is, to a point, already slightly radioactive.
That's what attracted me to it.
Oh, it's the yellow glow. That yellow glow just makes me feel all warm and fuzzy.
It's all warm and fuzzy.
Right? Or at least just warm and glowy. Something.
Even these night sights when the whole gun glows.
Right? Oh, crazy. So I'm going to tell you that last hour interview was amazing to me. I mean, to have a Supreme Court justice agree to come on the radio to talk about states' rights versus federal rights, and there's so much more stuff that we want to really kind of explore and talk about. I'm going to try to get her back, because I was enthralled, and I'd like to know what you think. I'd like to know
it's a lot like 3D chess type thing. You have to think about, and it's like, well, if this changes, how is that going to change this, and that, and
right. And then and for those of us who got through English by knowing it was a sentence, but not knowing how to tear apart the sentence, the fact that here's a comma or an umlaut or a semicolon or something that has that changes the meaning is like amazing to me. Math is not that hard. So okay, so DJ Play Ice is saying that China is doing something with 1.4 million metric tons of lead, maybe?
More likely.
Yeah, maybe. So don't know. So he's sending us data, but I'm not quite sure what the data is for. Maybe I'm
United
screen
States is number 3 anyhow.
Got it. Okay. So, hey, have we talked about lead globally? There you go. He did tell us. It was just on the third screen. Did we tell you about Car Arms, Tommy Gun, Magnum Research? All of those guns are available at CarArms. Well, it's car.com, but it's Car Arms, the company. They own Auto Ordnance,
Magnum Research,
Tommy Gun, Car itself.
Right, and there could be a couple other little.
There are the BFR.
But that's under the Magnum Research.
Well, it actually has its own category. In their website, they're like, it's so important it gets its own category too. The video producer is telling us, he keeps dropping hints, that he wants a Desert Eagle in 50 AE, and Christmas is coming. That's kind of so the hint is pretty darn big. But go to car.com and check out the products, because they and their sponsorship of our show keeps us on the air. And man, they've got some really good stuff. They make a thin blue line car. I think it's in their CW line. It's in the 9mm. It's pretty. It's a pretty cool gun. I'm trying to talk them into doing a thin teal line one for the DC Project. Wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't you guys all want to own a teal striped gun just to support the DC Project without ever having to say DC Project? Just saying. I'm just saying. I got
a teal gun, and I didn't know the ramifications of it when I got it. It was just pretty.
You're in touch with your feminine side. In touch with your feminine side. So speaking of DC Project, I was in New Jersey and we had we didn't. I attended a cocktail party for Second Amendment movers and shakers to help do the things that the DC Project does, to help them support it, because it really is a machine that runs on money, as are most not-for-profits, because they're trying to do effort, they're trying to do work, and they need to raise the money to do it. But if you've been following us, you've been following this show, you know that last month a dozen of us were invited to DC to meet with the Second Amendment Caucus. Do you know that since then 3 of the DC Project gals have been asked to come back to Washington to testify on red flag laws, to testify on a couple different, I think actually red flag laws, ghost guns, and I'm not sure what the third bill is that they're being asked to testify.
And they drive there in their own car because the DC Project doesn't have a Gulfstream to make it easy on you.
DC Project doesn't need a Gulfstream, but it would be really nice if they had a credit card that could buy a commercial airline ticket. Let's just set it at levels. Let's just set it at levels. So, okay, so the Teal Life, that's a good hashtag. Teal Life. So, yeah. And those of you who want to email me ideas, we're looking for ideas for cute t-shirts, because the DC Project has a line of t-shirts that they sell too. A teal Tokarov. There we go. But the reason that teal is the color is that if you look at the women's shooting organizations from across the country, they have all kind of selected some brand of teal. So the WOMA, which is the Women's Outdoor Media Association, the NRA Women, the DC Project, there's a couple others that have selected a teal color as their color. So the line is teal for 2A, and it is all for women for gun rights. And so that's why the Teal Life has a lot of depth and meaning. So I'm telling you, there is probably not a store in Ohio that if they have a sale and has a teal shirt that I'm not having it. So I am lining up a teal closet because that way I'm ready to go. Anytime somebody calls me and wants me to come speak somewhere, I'm like, have microphone, will travel. So if you've got an organization or a group that wants to hear about the Second Amendment, wants to hear about the history of the Second Amendment, or wants to hear what the DC Project is doing, or just hits the history section, or the training section, or the self-defense section, or concealed carry fashion, or one of those, any of those, because I'm going to generally throw in a commercial or a pitch for the DC Project in the middle of it, but I'll gladly come, or I will Zoom in or Ring Central or any of those to talk to your organization about Second Amendment rights. And so the video producer knows the most recent DC Project State Rep really well. I have to announce this. I'm just going to announce it. So Susan Lathrop, which is our video producer's wife, is in South Dakota and has accepted the position as the state leader in the DC Project in South Dakota. So we're expecting really great things from Susan because she is extremely organized. Well, she knows Paul, so she's extremely connected. And she, I think in the 2A world, she pretty much knows who's who. And it's going to be a great thing. So congratulations, Susan. Welcome to the team. Start shopping for teal clothes because you're going to need them.
Honest citizens like you protect themselves every day. We talk about it every week on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Were these gun owners lucky, or did they have a plan? How should we defend the people we love? We discuss recent examples on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Put us in your pocket.
Hi, I'm Janelle Westrom, owner of Davenport Guns and Davenport Shooting Club. At Davenport Guns, we do so much more than sell firearms. We advocate for increased personal safety and security, not just for you, but your whole family and community. Go to DavenportGuns.com to see our online inventory and browse videos, articles, and things we just find entertaining. Sign up for our newsletter to learn more.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Hi, this is Paul Lathrop from the Polite Society podcast. I wanted to let you know that the show you're listening to is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. You can check out all the shows on the network by going to selfdefenseradio.net or tune in for more on Self-Defense Mondays on Karma Radio, krmaradio.com.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Suffolk and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Had a dirty day? Grunt Goat Tactical Soaps, made from fresh goat's milk and organic oils that detoxify, clean, and restore moisture to skin, will get you ready for your next adventure. These unique soaps are handcrafted in the Blue Ridge Mountains and shipped to anywhere in the U.S. Visit SillyBillyGoatFarm.com for their full line of Grunt Goat Tactical Soaps. That's SillyBillyGoatFarm.com.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough? Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl / mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
So Rob's digging in the news here. What you got? What are we going to talk about first?
Well, we can talk about the fact that Biden's new ghost gun regulation may not be
as legal would be.
Well, and some of it is they're trying to get the ATF to change so much that it's not going to stand up due to the fact that it's going to have to go back through the Congress to. I mean, it's one thing if they reinterpret it, but they're trying to change so much of it. A couple months ago, I don't remember what case it was, they said that the way that the ATF reads what a frame is doesn't necessarily govern an AR-15 at this point because it has to do with the bolt and all this stuff. So it's really, their definition of a frame covers more the upper than it does the trigger assembly. So
let's talk about this. So the ATF, because why does this matter? Because the ATF says the frame is where you put the serial number.
Right.
And then, but with an AR, you break it in half, and there's two pieces. So one half has the trigger, and one half has the bolt.
Right, and you can change calibers and everything on the upper part and put it onto the lower part with the serial number that doesn't match any of the descriptor from it. And that there's a lot of things in this. I mean, and it's funny because the 68 Gun Control Act outlined what this frame, what this gun was and everything. But yet the 1959 was when the AR actually went on the civilian market. So it's not like it was
it wasn't. It was come out afterwards. They just didn't consider it because they didn't think it was going to get to the popularity that it currently is.
It didn't get very popular. It wasn't from 59 till Bill Clinton made it illegal in 94.
Right.
93, 94. It really wasn't a popular gun. Mostly it was popular with the ranchers out west or the police departments, but not with the general shooting public. A lot of GIs that came home, they bought one because it was like the gun they had in the military.
Well, and so the interesting thing is a lot of people went and said, what's the big deal? What are they trying to restrict? What's it look like? Let me try that. Let me look at that. And then, the government called attention to it, and that attention attracted.
The big thing that changed the AR, as much as nobody's mentioning any of this, is the flat top receiver. When they took away the handle off the top, it made it look more realistic and usable for the average person.
Okay, so let's, in the fear of going back to a history section outside of the sequence of history sections, when did they take the handle off, and who took the handle off? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know who actually made the first flat top receiver, but I would say that it was probably in that late 80s type thing.
It's like, who took my handle?
But it was funny because they made a flat top receiver that a scope could just bolt right onto, but then they made a handle that would bolt back onto it that had the rear sight, and so it looked like the first original design. But yeah, you could just take these bolts loose and the back sight came off, and then you could mount your scope on it in place. And then it was directly mounted to the receiver so that it was nice and secure and sturdy. It wasn't mounted to an adapter on an adapter on an adapter, as they have been in the past.
Right. Okay.
The big thing is because the gun is basically in a straight line now, the scope sticks up in the air a couple inches, and so your head doesn't look through the hole in the scope. So they had to make a raised up cheek piece to get your eye in line with the new scope. So. None of this is verified. This is just my thinking, but I believe that the flat top receiver is what made it popular.
Popular. Okay, that's an interesting concept.
Before that, it looked like something G.I. Joe carried around in the cartoons, and regular steel and wood gun people were not interested in that particular piece.
Okay. So right now the Biden administration is trying to add ghost gun regulations. I'll tell you, here's the interesting thing. Nobody's hearing this anywhere else. In Pennsylvania, they're going after the ghost guns, saying that criminals use ghost guns and they're used in almost all the crimes, and they're saying, and this just cracks me up, that criminals, instead of stealing guns, which is how they get them in all other 49 states, the criminals in Pennsylvania build their own guns because they go in, they buy the ghost guns, and they go back to the machine shop and they work like little elves and they build these ghost guns. Then they commit the crimes.
But statistics aren't showing that. The ghost guns don't show up in crime statistics.
The Pennsylvania Attorney General says that and says that that's the biggest cause. Just saying.
Well, and I see some of the stuff where they keep saying, they're going to regulate bars of steel, they're going to regulate pieces,
they're going to serialize the bars of steel for anything, in case you make it into a gun. And our producer says Pennsylvania criminals are significantly smarter than criminals in any other state.
And much more patient, too.
They're patient, and they're driven, and they're mechanically inclined. That's what they are. So that would be just because I was like, you're kidding me, right? And they're like, no, it's a big deal. No.
The crime part of it is just everybody's got to have a hobby, right? So in their spare times when they use their ghost gun to rob
if they can work in a machine shop to make a ghost gun into a gun, multiples of them, just in a bunch
most
of them.
Most of them are making enough money they don't have to go steal stuff.
Right, because the machine shops want them to come work, and we'll give you a $500 signing bonus.
Some of the stuff, because of the way that the Department of Justice is trying to manipulate these things, they're actually doing some stuff with the 3D printers too. So there's a special parts in the owner's manual of your 3D printer that warns you about building this stuff, and so there's a lot of things that before long, if you could program your 3D printer, if you can run a milling machine or an engine lathe, your hands will be registered with the FBI.
I was going to say your noggin's registered with the FBI. Then that would be it, but it's interesting. It's almost like the ATF feels like the wheels are flying off of this because there's so many things.
The lady that was on our show a couple weeks ago, Habinski,
Ashley.
She was just recently testifying in Washington
on the ghost guns.
And some of the stuff that she had to say was that even clear back into the Revolutionary War time, a lot of people bought the components and built their own gun because there wasn't like a Winchester or a Remington or just a gun shop down the street that you...
But no, it's a brand new crime started by the criminals in Pennsylvania. Don't you get it? Aren't you listening to the press? Aren't you paying attention? We'll be back right after this.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
Had a dirty day? Grunt Goat Tactical Soaps, made from fresh goat's milk and organic oils that detoxify, clean, and restore moisture to skin, will get you ready for your next adventure. These unique soaps are handcrafted in the Blue Ridge Mountains and shipped to anywhere in the U.S. Visit SillyBillyGoatFarm.com for their full line of Grunt Goat Tactical Soaps. That's SillyBillyGoatFarm.com. Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3 and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl / mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Riding Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
This is Dan Perkins with your songs and stories for soldiers, Veterans Tip of the Day. If you're a veteran with a disability, are you interested in a program that could give you a free home? Homes for Our Troops is a privately funded 501c3 nonprofit organization that builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post-9/11 veterans to enable them to rebuild their lives. These homes restore some of the freedom and independence our veterans sacrificed while defending our country and enable them to focus on their family and recovery. Since its inception in 2004, nearly 90 cents of every dollar has gone directly to the program to serve veterans. HFOT builds these homes where the veterans choose to live and continues its relationship with the veterans after the home delivery to assist them in rebuilding their lives. For more information, go to their website, www.hfotusa.org, and see if you can qualify for the home of your dreams. This has been your Songs and Stories for Soldiers, Veterans Tip of the Day.
Okay, so we are back. And sometimes society scares me. And here's the reason and the why. I want to read you this. So this is a question from an anti-gunner who's getting their information from their anti-gun news and from Facebook and from, I don't know, from wherever. And they gather it all up, and they have a lack of data. And so it's almost like you can't argue with crazy, you know, if facts don't matter. But here, listen to this. I was going to say read this, but you can't read it because you're on the radio. How about you listen? I'll read. So how do you recommend stopping all of the daily killings? What is your solution? Is it the law-abiding citizens that are buying guns and then turning rough? So putting guns into the wrong hands. There's 400 people killed in one day. Something is so wrong with that. And then in screaming, yelling, large fonts, what is your solution? More guns? More killings? Where does it stop? So they truly believe, one, that 400 people are killed in the day, and that it is that if a good person gets their hands on a gun, they will go rogue with it. So that you by the sheer fact that you own a gun, that you will harm someone else because now you've got the power or something. What in the living corn-fed Kansas? I don't know. It is just insane to me where they're getting their information. It really, it's just so propagandized, not true, false, fake, all kinds of stuff. And man, I don't know. So they are, first, that's not true data. But according to the CDC, the assault, Rob has highlighted a couple points within this. According to the CDC reports, the assault weapons ban, which also restricted magazine capacity, did not reduce crime rates. So more gun laws don't fix the problem. If it were that number, but it's not that number, but okay. The kicker is that since the 10-year ban expired in 2004, so it was 1994 to 2004, the violent crime rate in America has dropped steadily, while the ownership of modern sporting rifles, the AR-15 and the like, those handleless guns that we were just talking about, the ownership has rose dramatically. Today, there are more than 20 million modern sporting rifles in circulation. 20 million. So that was a piece of the information. The other thing is we were talking about Pennsylvania and how they were saying where their crime was coming from, or at least the state attorney general. Watch for him. He's going to run for governor. He's going to try to. He's working his way up. You're just starting to see it. The Department of Justice has found that 43% of criminals had bought their firearms on the black market. So they bought their guns on the black market. So the criminals are buying guns from criminals, and 6% of them have acquired them via theft. So
less than 1% at gun shows.
But gun shows are a problem. Less than 1% have bought them at a gun show in a face-to-face transaction. 43% bought them on the black market, and 6% acquired them via theft. So this is the people who they interviewed, the criminal, the actual end criminal. So in this, they've said, here's where 50% of the criminals are acquiring their guns: the black market or theft. How do the guns get on the black market? It's not like they go to a black store with a black door to buy a black rifle. It's the black market is the underground market where criminals reside. So there's something already that has happened. Some other criminal element has happened.
If you were willing to pay enough money, you can buy anything, even if I don't own it. I'll get one for you.
Yeah, what do you want? How much money you got? Right? So there's a, how do guns get to the black market?
Well, here's one way they found is Fort Campbell, Kentucky. 3 soldiers are working with some contacts they have in Chicago.
Okay.
They're going to Tennessee and buying guns and then sending them to Chicago.
Okay, so they're in Kentucky. Fort Campbell's in Kentucky, isn't it?
Right, but that thing is they go to Tennessee and buy the guns. It's funny because the way the story sounds is the people in Chicago already know where they can buy the guns in Tennessee. So basically, they give them an order for what they want and where to get it from.
It's a straw purchase, so they're straw purchasing and then shipping them to Chicago.
Yep.
Right.
And, And it's like they get an order ahead of time, and it was funny because the ones like they contacted the phone company and got their records, and he's like, you're going to have to get a loan or something because they're getting. You better take out a little loan because they want a lot of guns. Is what one of the messages on the phone was.
Okay, so they're texting them to say, so I'm going to the bank, I'm getting a loan to buy guns to sell on the black market to ship to Chicago.
Said that they went to the one guy's house. They found 49 empty gun cases there, 4 of which were matched to firearms that are recovered by the Chicago police already. So that means there's 45 more that are out there somewhere, but they don't know exactly where. And that's at least at one guy's house. Who's to say what's at the others? 49
empty gun cases. So so no gun, 49 cases. So that's how they get to the black market, is someone who's willing to turn money, someone who has not broken the law prior to this or not been caught prior to this, who's willing to turn some amount of money into something. So if you want it, somebody will supply it. And so in this case, these 3 soldiers are going to jail, and they're going to jail for a while. So it is, none of the 3 soldiers have been deployed overseas. One of them is a supply specialist, one is a signal support specialist, and one is a fire control specialist. So, yeah, straw purchase is already illegal. That's the issue. But where do we go with this? Because they are going to lock down the gun shows. They are going to lock down the legal gun owners from owning guns.
They knock the legal gun owner for this stuff. It's not the criminal. They go after the legal gun owner, and then, like I say, gun shows are going to be a target. There's some other things. It shows how they were transferring the money electronically. So all that kind of stuff will tighten up for everybody that's trying to use electronic pay sites and stuff like this.
I don't know. I just, lawbreakers, the laws are for the law abiding. And the problem...
That'll make you feel better as a law abiding. The criminal doesn't care what the law said because he wasn't paying attention to it.
And he's not intending to get caught. So he's not intending to get caught, and so it's like it doesn't really apply to him. Okay, they're just suggestions, kind of like the speed limit, right? It's not really my law. It's just that. But here's your assignment. Google letting people out of prison early. So what's happening is the law abiding is being penalized and punished because we won't step wrong. We will follow whatever. We will be herded into the little corner.
Well, you've heard Mark Keith Robinson's rant when he went to his local city.
Yes.
And he was telling how he's law-abiding and that they're going to pass laws and it's going to affect him, but not the criminal. And he will bring his guns down and turn them in like he's supposed to because he's law-abiding. But yet the criminal's not going to turn his gun in. And his little rant, I don't know, it had to be 25, 30 minutes long, but it was very well thought out considering it looked like he just pulled it out of his hat right there.
I think he did pull it right out of his hat, and he presented it like he was a Baptist, like the whole, brimstone and hellfire. He was, the whole Baptist minister getting it done kind of thing.
Right, but they point out good points though. They go after it's all reactionary. Once the law is broken, then they try to close the spot. Well, it only affects the guys who were doing it lawfully in the first place. And then the next time the law breaks, they try to cover that hole too. And
I think that it is a legal version of whack-a-mole, right? And how many times can you actually hit the mole versus hitting the spot where the mole used to be?
But it's when you plug all these holes up, then how do you get from point A to point B because there's so many roadblocks in your way now?
I know. I don't know that I have an answer. I know that I have frustration and heartburn, but I don't know that I have an answer. And that's the shame of it, is we've got to figure out how to make people personally responsible and hold them accountable. We'll be back right after this.
Hi, I'm Janelle Westrom, owner of Davenport Guns and Davenport Shooting Club. At Davenport Guns, we do so much more than sell firearms. We advocate for increased personal safety and security, not just for you, but your whole family and community. Go to davenportguns.com to see our online inventory and browse videos, articles, and things we just find entertaining. Sign up for our newsletter to learn more.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Suffolcool and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough? Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
Okay, we are back. And so we were asked over social media about the DC Project match that is taking place in Missouri, May 23rd and 24th. And so not me, I am working on additional training myself, and headed to the Complete Combatant in Atlanta. And yet all of my people, all of my friends, all of the awesome girls from the DC Project are headed to Missouri to do the DC Project match and fundraiser. So if you are a 3-gun person, go to dcproject.info, check out the match, because it's there and they're talking about it. And you will see, if you watch on social media, you will see a lot more of that's going on. If you want to support the DC Project and some of the stuff that they do, you can go to dcproject.info and hit the donate button. And it's very well received. It's very much appreciated. So, yeah. Let's see. So, Missouri show for DCP. He's in Kansas City. What's up with the DC Project back home in Nebraska? So if you're in Nebraska, we've got a Nebraska girl that is, well, she's headed to Missouri for next weekend, but Nebraska is fairly active, and Stephanie Schaefer is the gal doing DC Project there. We are really blessed with an advisory board that is extremely active, and they've broken up the state, and so everybody's got a region that they guide and direct. And so Stephanie Schaefer is the Nebraska person, and she's also the regional lead for, I don't know if she's District 3 or District 4. I don't know which way they broke that, but it's one of your West people. So they chopped that in two chunks, and Texas has half of it and Nebraska has the other half. So I'm assuming it's up and down chop, not side by side chop, but not sure. I know what Region 2 looks like, and I know what Region 1 looks like, because that's only there. But anyhow, dcproject.info, it's pretty good. They do a lot of work. They're working diligently. And a couple weeks ago, they had raffled off a Jerry Micklick experience, so you could win Jerry as your match partner and win a full day of training with Jerry Micklick. So wouldn't that be an awesome thing? And the fact that Jerry allows us to sell him or raffle him off like he's one of the bachelors, at a bachelor auction. And because he believes in what we have to do and what we have to say.
Or you get a chance to shoot with him or hear him tell you what you're doing wrong and how to correct some of it.
Because he's not telling you what you're doing right.
But I mean, it's not that you can get that just any old place.
No.
And it's funny. I mean, I watched some of the one. We went to a 3-gun, and Jerry was teamed up with a guy, and it was, if that guy would have just thought about the logistics of it, and as soon as Jerry shot, he would have shot. That way, it cleared the deck so Jerry could shoot again.
Because Jerry had to wait for him.
They could have went through so much faster because Jerry could just ding, 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 ding right down the line.
Right.
And this guy just needed to get rid of his bullet so that
he was out of the way. So yeah. So as soon as he heard bang, pull the trigger. As soon as he heard bang, pull the trigger. Just go. Move on. Right? Yeah. So if you have Jerry as your partner, it's almost a guaranteed win because he's just,
as long as you stay out of his way.
Right. Don't slow him down. Don't be a speed bump to his progress. If you have not seen him in action, folks, this is a YouTube moment. Look him up because it is amazing.
I watched his daughter Lena and the mom. I don't know her name. So they were shooting shotgun, and Kay had just come off of some kind of shoulder surgery, couldn't use the gun on her shoulder, so she would shoot from the hip and then hold the gun over, and Lena would load the gun like 6 shots in one swoop
just in
motion.
one push. Yeah.
And it was funny because they were shooting the first, as soon as you stepped off the go button, they had to shoot about a 60-yard slug, and from the hip she hits that, and then she goes to shot and burns her way down through the brush and this close quarter stuff, and then holds the gun over, and Lena shoves more bullets in the way she goes again. But it's like, it's unbelievable how fast that she can load someone else's gun.
And somebody just had to. I'm sure they had to practice it. To what do I have to do to hold it stiff enough?
How do you hold it still enough that she doesn't shove you down when she's trying to put the bullet?
Sorry, Mom. Let me pick you back up. But it's that kind of thing. I just saw one of the active self-protection instructors holding their gun upside down and shooting it. And they were like, what are you doing and why are you doing it? He says, I do this a lot to show people that you cannot blame bad aim on having a bad grip. He's like, bad aim is because you're not, it's all about trigger pull and all about smooth operation and knowing but it was just, different instructors teach differently, which is why Truly, which is why you want to break away from your instructor and go find somebody else across the country and take instruction with them. You're going to learn something. You're going to learn something new and unique from each different instructor that carries away that you're not going to learn from your guy, because your guy's going to teach you what he knows, but he doesn't know it all. I don't care how good they are, they don't. And so continuing to get that training and reaching out different places and different people is so absolutely so valuable.
I just thinking I can teach them some bizarre ways of doing things, but it's not the right way of doing it. It's just the way I do it.
Right? But if it works for them, that may be it. Is there really a right way? That's the thing.
I find that I point shoot a lot, and it's like my friends are like, if you would use your sights, it would slow you down. And I just don't. I have shot so much that I don't use the sights a lot. So
my gun, I know where my gun shoots. My gun knows where I want it to go. I tell it where to go, and it says, "Yes, sir." What do you want me to do next? What are we going to do next? Right? I have a couple guns that are like that instinctively shoot. They fit my hand, and they instinctively shoot, and I gravitate toward those so that shooting is not as hard of work with those guns as it is with others. And so I think that's a piece of it is that the more experienced you are in shooting, it is you get better at picking the right gun that fits your body style.
Right. I mean, how many times have you went in and looked at something brand new and decided I didn't like the way it felt, and you didn't buy it in the first place? So it's just there's nothing else wrong with the gun except for just the way that I don't like the controls. I don't like the way that it points or feels.
The way that I'm put together and the way that it's put together does not make a symbiotic relationship, right? But other ones are like, oh, I love this. I mean, I bought a 45 at a gun shop at the next town over, and Rob was standing there, and the guy gave me 6 bullets and the gun and says, go in and try it. So I went in the indoor range, I tried it, I walked out, and I said, I'll take it. And
yeah, she's normally not like that. She's normally like, she'll look at it, and then 3 months later, then she says, I think I'll buy one of them. And so for her to just right away say, I'll have one of those, that was
you turned around and you're like, you will? Right? I mean, it was that. And to this day, I love that gun as much now as I did the day that I bought it. It fits my hand amazingly well, and I don't know why. And people have tried to buy it from me, and I'm like, you get out of town. I'm not selling it's like selling your kid. I'm not selling my kid. It is mine. It fits me. I fit it, and that's that. I mean, you've had a couple guns that are just your all-time absolute favorite, so you shoot them to death.
Right, and sometimes I buy a replacement for it. Sometimes I just move on and go to something else. But there's just some guns that just feel great in your hand, and you just enjoy shooting them.
Right. Well, and your little turquoise one is one of those where everybody else is like, you like that? And you're like, I really like that. So I don't, it's that. So what new is it? What's the next new gun that you're going to decide that you're falling in love with?
Well, I want to try that DVG Sky pistol, but I haven't been able to locate one of them.
We'll have to see when you get your hands on it. So hey, folks, we'll check in with you next week. See you then.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.